but it's right here facing us every day. And Mayor, again, really appreciate your leadership on this issue.
Thank you. And I appreciate the leadership of everybody here because we do need partners. This is a federal issue. It is an issue that state government can have some say over. But as the mayor of a city that is often seen as the epicenter of this rail activity, it is something that is discussed and in people's front of mind constantly. And not only are our residents concerned about their safety, but they are concerned about what happens if there's a spill. Who is going to pay to clean it up? What happens if something bad does happen here in the city of Albany? You know, we're somewhat fortunate. By the time the trains enter the city lines of Albany, they're moving at very slow speeds. And so the statements that have been made up here about these other communities where these trains are moving at much faster speed and pose significant danger is something that makes this a statewide issue. But here in the city of Albany, where we have taxpayers who are already overburdened, their concerns are very real. And so we need to assure them that funding will be there in the event that there is a spill, in the event that there is an accident, and that cost is going to be borne not by taxpayers, but by the industry. And the second thing I want to say about that is that it's just good energy policy. Our governor understands that, and the representatives up here understand that. We need to ensure that the costs associated with not only the drilling of this oil, but the transport of this oil safely is borne by the industry and reflected in the cost of that energy. We often refer to fracked oil as cheap oil. Well, let's make sure that it's not cheap because taxpayers are going to bear the burden of the transport and energy policy that is being created as long as the industry is not stepping up and being held financially responsible for each of the segments of the journey of that oil, from coming out of the ground to being loaded onto trains to being transported through our cities and towns and villages to where it is ultimately sent to be refined. That entire cost needs to be reflected and borne by the industry that is creating that oil, that is making money off of that oil. And when we have that kind of sound energy policy, I think we'll see a faster move to alternative forms of energy that will create jobs and that will really put us on a path that we need to be on in the 21st century. So I thank you for this legislation. It's important, and I'm hopeful that we will be able to tell our residents that this part of their worry can be put to an end with the legislation that you've had, that in the event that there is an accident or a spill, the people who caused it are going to be the ones who pay for it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Well stated as always. And I should note that, John, thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Good morning, everybody. And to put it shortly, it's no surprise that we've seen a huge uptick and increase of crude oil transported throughout the state and, of course, into the Port of Albany, which I represent. What is problematic, and we went through this exercise last year at the leadership of Member Steck, is that the Bakken crude oil, particularly here, that comes into the Albany area and throughout the state, is highly volatile. When you look at the percentages of vapor gases compared to other crude oil in other countries that we compete with, it is hands down that the Bakken crude oil is that much more volatile. And therefore, when you look at the high volatility, which unfortunately the manufacturers are not pulling back on and reducing the content, when you look at the high volume, obviously there's a lot of business going on. I'm a small business person. I'm not against increasing volume or business. But as we all know, when you do more business, there's more opportunity for problems to happen. This bill speaks to the hopefully unlikely event that we hope never happens, that could happen here in this region, that could cause some tremendous damage. We want to make sure that the proper resources are in place to help the community come back. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Assemblywoman Fahey and Senator Vella for their leadership on this issue. In our office, we've been very focused, I think, in trying to make the public aware of what the cause of this problem is. And that is when the oil is fracked in North Dakota, It has taken it out of the ground with certain natural gas liquids that are highly volatile and flammable. That's what Assemblyman McDonald was referring to. And there's a process known as stabilization where you remove those liquids from the oil before it's shipped. And that's what absolutely needs to be done. The three of us were at a press conference in Menands, which is in my district, with Senator Schumer. He has a bill that's going to require stabilization, unfortunately not immediately, but in the long run, that's really the answer for our community. And, you know, this train that goes through Menands, Menands is a small community. I represented it for many years in the Albany County Legislature. And if one of these trains goes, there's no more Menands. That's how serious this issue is for our communities. So I want to again thank Assemblywoman Fahey and Senator Avella for their leadership on the issue, and those that have pointed out too that again the railroads are controlled by the federal government. We have things we can do. The bills that Assemblywoman Fahey mentioned. We also have a bill dealing with oil trains blocking places where roads cross railroad tracks. Those are the type of things that we can do at the state level. The governor has ramped up the inspections of the tracks to make sure that it makes less likely a derailment. But the bottom line is this, and that is that no governor, no county executive is going to be able to stop these trains from coming into our state because it is the federal government that controls interstate commerce. So I think we need to all join together and support Senator Schumer's effort to get this oil stabilized. They stabilize all the oil in Texas where they know a bit about oil. You can't put oil in a pipeline unless it's stabilized, but yet they're letting it come through our communities in this highly dangerous and volatile state. And so we need to make sure that that doesn't happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Steck. Very helpful, and again, great leadership. I learn from both my colleagues all the time as we talk regularly about this issue. I know